A man walked into a room with a gun, a grievance, and nothing left to lose. And the person who talked him out of what they were about to do was someone who had spent 20 years learning one thing. The moment you make a person feel understood, the whole situation changes. When is the last time someone in a tough situation with you actually made you feel heard? And I mean really heard, to the point where your whole body just settled. That is a skill. Meet today's guest, Derek Gaunt. He knows these high-stakes situations better than just about anyone. Derek has spent 29 years in law enforcement, 20 of those on hostage negotiation teams in the DC metro area. He's an instructor and a coach at the Black Swan Group, and he's written a book called Ego, Authority, Failure. That should be required reading for every man who leads anything. We are honored to have Derek on the show today, and by the end of this conversation, you'll have a working understanding of tactical empathy. Tactical empathy, just think about that for a second. How your ego gets in the way of your leadership and why your tone does 13 times more work in every conversation than the actual words you're choosing. Believe me, I have felt that as a dad.
Wake up to who you can be. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
We are back. Thank you all for being here. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, guys. It is an honor. I got chills when you were, that was the most dramatic intro that I've ever had read about
Oh,
me.
right on. Hey.
I was getting chills when I was listening to
You're
it.
like, I can't wait to listen to who this guy is. Oh, wait,
I know.
It's me.
That's you, Derek. That's you, Derek. That's how badass you are. It's really on. It's an honor to have you here. So thank you for joining us. And how about you? Are you, how mindful do you think you are out there? You might be surprised. I know we've mentioned assessment before. We have this free assessment that's can actually bring you into our awareness to action course. All you need to do is head to mentalkingmindfulness.com, link in bio to find that. It's also in our Substack newsletter. We have a new name. It's Jon McCaskill and Will Schneider's Substack.
Super original.
Yeah, super original. Right. You can also scroll to the show
man.
notes to find this information, or you can simply pick up your phone and text MTM to 33777 to get involved in what we're doing. We're actually going to be speaking in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you're there, Derek, come down. It's called Warrior Defined. That's going to be September 25th in Charlotte, North Carolina. But again, everything is on our website or any of those areas that I spoke of. So we have a one breath grounding practice, Derek. You know how incredibly powerful and empowering this is, just to kind of calm it all down with a breath. Yeah. So I know, right? It's such a game changer. So we do it every beginning of every show. So let's take an exhale. Close the eyes if you can, if it's safe for you. Let's take a big, giant, bellowing bottom inhale, big breath. Inhale, 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 inhale. Let's just hold that breath here for 3, 2, 1, and let it go out slowly. All right. We come back. And all right, here we go. So a lot of men might hear what Jon was talking about, like tactical empathy. Tactical sounds like a really fun word, but empathy could get kind of lost as something that might be soft. So, what are we talking about here about tactical empathy?
Just think of it as it's a deliberate application of calibrated emotional intelligence designed specifically for you to recognize and articulate your counterpart's perspective. It's tactical because it's deliberate. And we were doing it for a specific reason. And the specific reason, you alluded to it earlier, and that is everybody has an almost unquenchable thirst to have somebody else understand what they're up against, understand what their environment looks like, understand what their circumstances are. And 95% of the population isn't getting it anywhere on the planet. They're not getting it at work. They're not getting it at home. And so those who are trained in tactical empathy are at a distinct advantage because we know how to supply that one thing that everybody is looking for. And the minute that you do that, is the minute that they stop looking at you as a threat. Because anytime that you engage another person and the words I want or I need is in your head or is in the head of the person you're engaging, you are a threat to that person. There's no way around it. And so tactical empathy is the incremental, I guess is the word I'm looking for, application of a certain skill set in order to return that person to a normal functioning level so that we can have a collaborative conversation.
Man, that was really well defined. It was almost as though you've spoken about this before.
Or you might have wrote a book about it. I don't know. Right?
Right. Oh, now I'm just gonna be concerned the whole time that Derek's using tactful empathy on us, trying to get something out of us.
Or maybe it feels like, threatened because we want answers, Derek. Okay, we want answers.
Yeah, I
want.
I need.
We're going to tell you, I'll tell you, there's, we're probably going to talk about specifics as we push on, but there's a definite way where you can take questions and make them non-threatening, because even if your motivations are pure, a direct question puts everybody on the defensive. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later on how you can work around those defensive by not even using a question to get the information you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, also we'll add to that. We'll put a pin in that too. It's like why say what is better than saying why, which I've heard you talk about before, which I think is great. Well, I mean, so take us a little bit deeper into tactical empathy. Like how does it actually, give us more leverage? Like being in this position of tactical empathy instead of like a threat by, asking a question or what or why or whatever. Yeah.
With tactical empathy, the conversation is not about you. You're making it about the other side. And when you want or need something, the average person who wants and needs doesn't come in thinking about the other side. They're thinking about their own agenda, where they want to end up. My agenda is what it is. I don't force it in the beginning of the conversation. I put it on the back seat and we start talking about how this person views the circumstance, how this is impacting them. My goal and objective never doesn't change unless something within the interaction changes. And so a great illustration of it is my goal and objective as a hostage negotiator was to A, get him to release, and B, get him to surrender. That's the ultimate goal and objective of any hostage negotiator.
Release? What do you mean by release? Just to
release the hostage.
Release the hostage.
Sorry. Okay, got it. Release the people. So release and surrender. That is my objective going into the conversation. And I'll ask each of you, how many times do you think I led with that? How many times do you think I called inside the crisis site and said, Will, it's Derek from the police department. My goal and objective is to have you release those hostages and then come out and submit to my authority?
Zero.
Exactly.
And the answer that wouldn't have gone well.
I don't even have a hostage, and I would be like, no, absolutely not.
Exactly. And so by flipping the script, by making it about them first, number one, it conveys that you are different. You are an outlier. Because you're showing interest, you're now becoming interesting. The reciprocity that's within these skills cannot be overlooked. You lend an empathetic ear, you're going to get an empathetic ear from another person. And so make it about them. Instead of standing on the opposite, this is what we usually do in a conflict or sensitive conversation or a negotiation. We stand on the opposite side of the street of our counterpart and we say, hey, it's better over here. Come over here. Come over here. And what you should be doing is walking to their side of the street and standing shoulder to shoulder with them and look at the lay of the land as they see it. And putting your goal and objective on the back seat and listening to the other side, you may hear something from the other side that changes what your goal and objective is. One of the things that we harp on at the Black Swan Group is never be so sure about what you want that you wouldn't take something better if it came along. And the only way to find that out is to engage the other side, because I don't care how many times you sat down with them. I don't care how well you know them. In that conversation, in that moment, there are things going on with them that you have no clue about. Things that could dramatically change where you want to end up. And so this idea of making it about them and using curiosity, going into every conversation, assuming that you do not have the complete picture because, brother, you don't.
Yeah.
What about, so I want to ask you specifically about that, a tactical situation where you use that, if you're allowed to get into the tactics and specifics. But I also, as a father of young children, I've got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And it seems as though it's a hostage negotiation every morning, trying to get them to put their shoes on or trying to get them to get in the car, go into school, whatever. You have kids, Derek?
I do. They are.
Okay.
They're old.
Yeah. Okay. Older than mine.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at some point you had a similar situation. How did you ever? I'm sure. No, never.
No, his head's bobbing around. He's like, I should have done this. I should have done that. Like, oh my God, if I would have known.
I'm curious how you use it as a dad and potentially as a father. I mean, not trying to manipulate, or sorry, not as a father, but a dad and a spouse. Not trying to manipulate, but just trying to ease things and get. What did you say? If there's a way to get something better, let's work that. Let's work toward that. How did you do it in that?
I didn't. I failed. I failed miserably. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm a human being, and
I hear you.
And I'm more emotionally tied to the people in my house than I am to anybody else, and so I can get triggered faster in my house than I can anywhere else. And
amen to that, brother.
And so I would go to work on a Monday and standard Monday morning talk. And I was a weekend, and I would say, my weekend was terrible. I fought all weekend long with my 16-year-old daughter, and they're like, "Wait, Mr. Negotiator, how is it that you were fighting with your 16-year-old daughter? I thought you knew all the stuff." And it's because there were emotions tied to it. So, how do you use it? Now, I know a little bit better. I know a little bit more. And I know that kids, almost regardless of the age, don't like yes-oriented questions. They don't like their autonomy infringed upon, especially your 9-year-old. Your 9-year-old is getting ready to kick into a new stage in life where your conversations with, you say is a boy or girl?
My 9-year-old's a girl.
Yeah, your conversation with her are going to start to be really hairy here in about 2 years.
All right.
And so,
damn it, I thought we were already there.
Well, no, it's you ain't seen nothing yet.
I know.
You ain't seen nothing yet. But she is very cognizant of her autonomy now, her agency, because that's what happens as she gets older. And so, when you use a yes-oriented question, a question where you're driving for a yes, that's the ultimate sound that you want to come out of your counterpart, they feel you tying them down, because yes is always obligation and commitment. And nobody likes to feel obligated or committed to something that they didn't ask for. And so you're going to ask your daughter to do something. I don't know what that something is. Understand that she's going to be in a negative state. By your definition, what you're about to ask is not a big deal. You're going to put her in a negative state, because what you're doing there, Jon, is you're changing her status quo. And everybody loves their status quo. Their status quo is where comfort resides. Introducing a change to the status quo is introducing uncertainty. Uncertainty is the mother of fear, and fear is what makes us defensive. And so stop asking yes-oriented questions. Any question where you're driving for a yes can be changed into a no. And people, even your kids, I'm continually amazed at how much I can get people to agree to by getting them to say no as opposed to pushing them for a yes.
So what would that look like in this situation? My 9-year-old right now, she's really good.
She's a gem.
She's an angel. Will knows.
Yeah.
But my 5-year-old little girl, she's hell on wheels, man. How do I phrase? Let's say, okay, this very morning this happened. I was asking her to get her socks and shoes on. I guess that's a yes-oriented question. Yes, Dad, I'll put my shoes on, right? How do I phrase that? And granted, this is anecdotal, but I want to see how we can apply it in a much larger, grander scale. How do I change that to where it's a no-oriented question?
Would you be against doing Daddy a favor?
Would you be against? Okay. And then from there, how do I walk that forward?
You're going to think that I'm being a bear, or whatever negative adjective you want to use. You're going to think I'm being the bear. It's going to feel like I'm trying to impose my will. How bad of a position am I going to put you in if I ask you to put your socks and shoes on so we could leave right now? As simple as that.
Well,
So-
I felt like I wanted to put my socks and shoes on when you said that, because I don't have my socks and shoes on.
He was going to take them off and put them on if he did.
A couple of things. Number one, you set it up with a no-oriented question that appealed to her kindness. Okay. Would you be against doing Daddy a favor? She doesn't feel obligated to say yes to this. So the no is going to come out almost immediately. Dad, no, of course not. Or words to that effect. Notice the tone of voice that I used. Notice that I said, and it was downward inflecting. I wasn't being aggressive. I wasn't using the BIS voice. You guys know what the BIS voice is? BISS? Because I said so voice.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
That's what most parents default to.
I feel like knife hands come with that, like,
defaulted to that.
Oh, yeah.
And then I followed it up with another no-oriented question. How bad of a position would I put you in if I asked you to put your socks and shoes on so we could leave right now? Is it 100% effective? No. But that's the first place I'm going to start. Now, if I get, I'm not doing it or whatever, then okay, we got to pull it apart. Now, I'm not naive enough to know that if you're asking them to put their socks and shoes on, you got someplace you got to be. And so pick your spots when you're doing this stuff. Sometimes when the circumstances are exigent, you gotta talk in a different manner. But the problem with that idea is most parents think they have to talk in that manner all the time because all circumstances are exigent, and they're just not.
Right. Well, then, so again, like the reason I ask those questions is most of our listeners are never going to be negotiating a true hostage situation. But a lot of our listeners probably do want to know what that was like for you in a real hostage situation. If you're able to tell us about one, how did you employ tactical empathy? What did that look like in action?
It's not the execution of the skill set is not dissimilar to what I just gave you there. I'll take you back to my first. My first was a jumper.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I bet that was crazy.
Yeah. You never forget your first.
Oh, I bet.
So I was on a
okay, I get what you're saying, Derek. Sorry, I went to a different place.
Yeah. You got a potty brain.
Well, it has not. John usually says that. Okay, thanks, Derek. Okay.
I was on a bridge with this guy for 7 hours in the winter, and it was a treat. And the skill set that we espouse at the Black Swan Group are derivations of what we used in law enforcement. We've leveled this stuff up compared to what they, I think, are still using in law enforcement. But for example, we at the Black Swan Group, we have a list of skills. They're called the Negotiation 9 in law enforcement. They called it the FBI 8. Affectionately known as more pies. That was our acronym for minimal encouragers, open-ended questions, reflecting, emotion labeling, paraphrasing, iMessages, effective pauses, and summary. Those are the 8 skills in the skill set. And so when I got up on the bridge with this guy, so let me give you more color, because this was even though it was my first, it was a dumpster fire. So the guy had been stalking his estranged wife with whom he shared a kid, to the point where she was in fear. She reports it to the police. We've got the probable cause to get the warrant for stalking. He knows that we've got a warrant. And so the day before this event, he's calling us from various payphones in Washington, D.C. Yeah, that's how long ago it was. Payphones. They still had payphones outside.
What even is that?
He was bopping around various payphones in Washington, D.C., basically, cat and mouse, catch me if you can type thing. So he was enjoying the attention that he was receiving from the police. We had information that he was on his way back to Virginia. We had already moved her and the kid out of the house. We put them up in a hotel. And we put 2 officers inside her house. So, he shows up in the middle of the night. Boom, we're there, got him, good to go. These guys are in the house on surveillance, and they get made. He sees them. He climbs into the backyard, looks up onto the back porch, looks in the window, and sees them in the house. Undetected, he goes back down the back porch steps, out into the alley, back to his car. He drives down the street to a grocery store and picks up a cold cut platter and a bottle of wine, comes back to her house, goes up on the back porch, sets the wine, sets the meal down on the back porch, goes back to the store that he just came from, picks up the payphone, calls us 911 and says, "Hey, tell the guys in the house I left them a little snack out on the back porch."
This guy likes games.
So that's who I was dealing with on the bridge. And for 7 hours, I used the combination of the more pies, especially when it came to emotion labels and summary, labeling the emotion that he was displaying both verbally and physically. I got him to the point where he was initially positioned on this bridge. If he had jumped, there were concrete barges that we eventually got moved, but there were concrete barges, construction barges that were underneath the bridge itself. So if he had jumped, he was going to hit one of those and it would have been over. So my job was to get him off of, there was a balcony type of feature on this bridge, and he was in the balcony. I was standing on the deck of the bridge. We were going voice to voice. And I finally got him back off of that balcony. And then we just started walking back towards Virginia. This bridge that I'm talking about connects Maryland with the state of Virginia. John, you were in the area. It's the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, the old Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
And so the interesting part about the jurisdiction there is the first third of the bridge is Virginia. I have jurisdiction. The middle third of the bridge is the District of Columbia. I don't have jurisdiction. And the last third of the bridge is the state of Maryland. I don't have jurisdiction. So when I first engaged him, I was technically in Washington, D.C. And so when the D.C. police got there, they decided that they were going to send up their tactical team to work with my negotiation team, because we had already locked in with this guy. They didn't want to break the rapport that had been established. And so it was my team working with the SWAT team, or the ERT, from the District of Columbia. And I finally got him walking back towards the shore on Virginia. And he saw the movement behind the fire truck. The movement behind the fire truck were the tactical guys. And they came around the corner, and somebody fired a less lethal round and hit him twice. All I heard was a loud ow, and then he went over the side. And, somebody behind me, he got hit. And I heard him go, "Ah!" And he jumps over to the side. And I remember somebody behind me yelled, "Grab him!" And I was like, "Nope, not doing that."
Yeah,
not doing that. If he goes into that cold water, he's going by himself. And he went over, and fortunately, where he went over, the height was diminished tremendously, and it was maybe 6 foot of water over 5 feet of silt. So needless to say, he survived. He was banged up pretty bad, but he survived. And so success or failure, I don't know. From my perspective, he lived, so I guess it's a success. I got him walking back to Virginia when he was actually standing on the railing of the balcony looking at the water at one point during the interaction. So that was my first time applying it in a real world situation, and it worked just like I was trained it was going to work.
Nice.
And so I was like, this is it, and this is it. And, you don't, with the application of any skill, you don't know until you know. And so
Right.
when you do it, it's like seeing a rainbow, or a unicorn, or something pleasurable for the first time. You want to see it again.
Hey guys, it's Jon. Real quick before we get back to the show, everything Will and I make for you lives in one place. And that's on our website, mentalkingmindfulness.com/link in bio. We have the overall website, but this specific link, mentalkingmindfulness.com/link in bio, has all the things. Or you can just text MTM to 33777 and we're going to send it straight to your phone. Start with the free awareness self-assessment. It takes just a few minutes and you will walk away knowing where you stand and where to start with growing and improving your awareness. You can also find our free app and our newsletter built to give you tools you can use that same day. And our course and community, Awareness to Action. It's linked there too. A2A is where this show turns into practice. It's real training on the gap between what happens to you and how you respond. Alongside this community that's just growing every day, every week, we've watched it change how people show up at work and at home and for themselves. And it's real practical stuff that you can use every day. So that's mentalkingmindfulness.com/link in bio, or text MTM to 33777. All right, back to the show.
Well, I'd imagine part of your training was what it takes to become a good listener. And so what does that look like? What does it take to be a good listener? What does it take to stay one? What does it need? What's required to be a good listener in the moment when like kind of energy can be high, emotions can be flaring?
Yeah. Go back to, I uttered a word earlier in our conversation today, and that word was curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity solves all your problems.
Mm.
If you carry through the conversation as if you don't know anything, and you gamify it. Try to uncover as many of those black swans as you can. A black swan is a small piece of information that, if uncovered, can change the direction of the conversation and ultimately the outcome.
Mm.
That's all it takes to being a good listener, is being curious. Here's what curiosity does for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you are attacked in the conversation, instead of getting defensive, ask yourself, where the hell is that coming from?
Yeah.
That will keep you from responding negatively to the trigger. Notice I didn't say don't get triggered in the conversation, because that's a physical impossibility. You are going to get triggered. But you've got space in between that stimulus and your response to make a determination on how you're going to respond. And so instead of responding with anger, respond with, there's more there. There's something else going on here. Because the attack usually comes out of left field and it makes no sense. And if it's coming from out of left field and it makes no sense, that means you are lacking data. Because everything on the planet would make sense to you. Bigfoot, UFOs, Loch Ness Monster, Santa Claus. Everything would make sense to you if you had enough data. So instead of getting in your feelings when you get punched in the mouth during the conversation, ask yourself, where is that coming from?
Yeah.
The other thing that makes you a good listener is understanding the different levels to it. And where most people do their dancing when it comes to listening, and that is level 1 and level 2. Level 1 is that intermittent listening, where I'm going to listen to you long enough to get the gist of what you're saying, and then I'm going to refocus on what my internal monologue is saying to me. And so I'm back and forth in the conversation. Sometimes I'm listening to you, sometimes I'm listening to myself. That's level 1. Level 2 is where you're listening to me long enough until you hear something that you know you have an argument for. The good ones will wait till you start talking before they jump into the conversation and tell you, you're wrong, I'm right. That's listening to hijack. The bad ones will just step on you. They hear what they can argue with and they just jump right in and cut you off. That's one way to hijack a conversation. The second way to hijack the conversation is me too. Me too. When I tell you I'm going through X, Y, and Z, and you say, "Are you really?" Me too. That happened to me just yesterday. At that point, you have told me this conversation, Derek, is no longer about you. It's about me. And people do this not because they have bad intentions, but they've been beaten over the head with this idea that common ground is the way to go to establish rapport and to get some and to influence somebody into doing what you need them to do. And I'm telling you, common ground is one of the worst things that you can do, especially if it's disingenuous.
Sure.
It has a stench about it.
You can totally sense that.
Those guys that come up to you, you start talking and you say, "Yeah, and then I took my son to the baseball game the other." "Your son plays baseball? Wow, my nephew plays baseball. We should get along." No. You don't make an assumption about another person because you guys have common interests. And people have weaponized that idea of common ground for so long that guys like me are especially sensitive to it. And so when I say something that somebody tries to top what I say with something similar to what I just said, I immediately go defensive.
Yeah. I feel there's also an anxiety that's at play there too. Because people I think want to connect. So I live in New York. I'm in so many different conversations, and people don't like those quiet moments. Or just kind of like just listening and not responding. So they can kind of go to that, that common ground like you're talking about so easily, just to like kind of like, oh hey, like we're connected in some way, where it's like it's not even a real connection yet. And you actually get you get like by being more vulnerable, being more authentic and listening, way more than you speak, that's like where the bond really starts to grow.
Common ground is a shortcut. I'm not telling you it's a bad shortcut, but be very careful in using it because people have weaponized it and they've done it to take advantage of other people. A story I tell all the time, and if you've heard it before, I apologize, but some of your listeners may not.
Oh, good.
When I was a young gun back in the early 90s, to give you a better idea, at the age of 23, they gave me a gun and a badge. And if you know anything about neurology or neuroscience, you know that at 23, my brain is not fully formed.
Not fully formed.
Yeah.
And they've given me the power to encroach upon somebody else's autonomy anytime I want it. So I was all over the place, and I was a hellion. So rest assured, if you came through the city of Alexandria and you were going 7 above the posted speed limit, you were getting paper if I was working. And so I wrote everything that moved. And so I'm sitting at an intersection one night. It's 11:45. I get off at 12:10. So I'm not really trying to get into anything too late. And a guy blows a light in front of me. And so it's 11:45. He blew a light. Everybody's kind of looking at me like, "What are you going to do? You going to do something?" And I'm like, I'm going to stop him. He's going to be drunk. And I'm going to be here until 4:30 in the morning. So I light him up and I pull him to the side of the road. And I just marked out on traffic with dispatch. I don't even get my seatbelt off. And I see that there's a badge hanging out of the window of the car.
Oh, wow.
So what assumptions has this guy already made about me? He's already made the assumption I'm going to let him go because he's common grounding me with the fact that he has a badge. He's saying, "You're a cop, I'm a cop.
We're cool."
I walk up on the car. So the badge out of the window was the first mistake. Walk up on the car. His second mistake was his tone of voice. And it was something like this. "What seems to be the problem, officer?"
I'm guessing this guy's not a negotiator.
And he's still holding his badge. And I'm really in my feelings now. That's his second mistake, was his tone of voice. I take his credentials from him. And this is the third mistake. It says, "Special Agent, United States Department of Housing and Urban Development." And I said, "This does not count. Let me see your driver's license and registration." And he got paper that night, and he got it because of the way he carried himself and because he was trying to manipulate me through the use of common ground. So I tell you that story, guys. It's not 100% evil. If it's legit, you got to be genuine with it, or else it's going to stick.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Well, you talked about, clearly you said you're in your feelings right then. And you said you've gotten triggered with your kids before because you're a human being. And we can get triggered. You're going to get triggered. A lot of that comes through the nervous system, the feelings, the emotions of a situation. But what about ego? And how does ego play into all this? Like, what's the moment in your career where you realize maybe your ego or your authority right now? Maybe you're not a 23-year-old guy out there. Maybe you're now 30 and you've been out on the street for a while. You know things. You've gotten some rank. That ego, your authority, was maybe getting in your way of you being fully present with someone. And since then, what has shifted?
Well, all right, let's take it one bite at a time. Ego.
Let's do it.
Is
please.
associated with identity.
Mm.
Outside of your family, maybe one or two other things. There's probably only 3 or 4 things that you would fight to the death for. And your identity is one of them. That's where ego comes from. And ego is on display more often than it should be. And when it's encroached upon or it's threatened, it's like a physical threat. Your amygdala and your hippocampus, it fires up just like it would if there was a lion chasing you down a hallway. In that instant, your brain can't tell the difference. And people will dig in only to prove that they were right. And that's one of the biggest hurdles that egomaniacal people have to get over is it's okay to be wrong. Now the question of, what was the aha moment for me? The aha moment for me was more watching other people than it was mistakes that I was making. Now, I made a boatload of mistakes as I rose through the ranks, but thankfully, the majority of those were not ego related. My ego probably came into play when I started teaching at the academy, because then I had a more expansive toolbox to share things with people, and so I'm an A type person, and that gasses me up. And so I'm not going to lie to you and say that I never suffered under the negative impacts of ego. It's there, but I watched other people and I vowed not to carry myself like I saw some of those other people carry, because they believe that their ego was so important that it didn't matter who was in front of them because they were going to shoot them out in the wake anyway. And that's how they carry themselves on each elevation within the department. And that reputation begins to fall in. And you start to create an environment where nobody wants to do anything. They will do it. They don't want to do it. They will do it because they want to keep their job. They don't want to do it. I wanted to create the environment where they wanted to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reluctant employee is going to be a less productive employee. There's just no way around it. Revenge is a powerful motivator. Ego can make people feel very small. And if you make people under you, I'm talking about direct reports. If you make direct reports feel very small, at some place later in your relationship, they're going to make you feel the same pain that you made them feel in that moment. If it's nothing more than, not answering their cell phone or their home phone when we're doing the emergency callback audit, or turning in reports that are replete with mistakes, or calling in sick all the time, you name it. So I wanted to create the environment where if I called my guys up on a Sunday night and said, tomorrow morning, gentlemen, we are assaulting the gates of hell, the only words that I want to come out of their mouth is, what time do you need me to be there? Whose car are we taking? Let's go. But ego will prevent that from happening. And people won't do it because you ask. They'll do it because they have to, and they're going to do it reluctantly. I would rather have a willing employee than a reluctant employee. And so I tried very hard to use the people that were elevated before me as examples, good and bad, on how they should conduct themselves. And it's a paramilitary organization. John, you were special forces. You know where the egos are in paramilitary or military organizations. And interestingly enough, this is what boggles my mind. This is why I wrote Ego, Authority, Failure, is that the blue flamer, we talked about the blue flamer in the book. You guys recall that? Blue flamer is that person that gets elevated rather rapidly within the organization. The person that
I've got to be honest, Derek, I haven't had a chance to read the book, but I definitely want to now.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, I appreciate you being candid about that. Check out the chapter on the blue flamer. I call it the blue flamer. It's not my terminology. There was an older gentleman who worked in the press office for the FBI. I went down to Quantico for some training with them one day, and he threw out this concept of the blue flamer. And the blue flamer is that person that rises rapidly within any organization. They don't spend a lot of time at one level before they're being bumped up and elevated to another level. And so just like a rocket coming off the pad, that flame is blue until they get into orbit. That's what the blue flamer is. Now, the problem with the blue flamer is the blue flamer doesn't have a lot of institutional knowledge or experience, but the blue flamer can take a test and answer a question. So the blue flamer gets elevated. Now, the blue flamer is looking at his or her rise, and they're hearing the talk that, basically that person hasn't really earned it. And so they overcompensate to prove that their elevation was appropriate. They overcompensate, and they start to micromanage. They start to go back down to a level below them and messing in that work, because that's where they feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable working at the level that they've just been elevated to. And so they gotta work overtime to impress upon those below them and those above them that the powers that be made the right decision, and they wind up running amok over everyone. That is a big contributor to toxic leadership.
Yeah. Well, you talked about getting buy-in. I mean, so take it the other way. Instead of having this blue flamer that, kind of lives in fear of being, his ego is in fear of him being identified of not actually worthy of his position, right? Because he's really not, because he doesn't have the experience like you've talked about. And I'd imagine people like that, like, kind of lead into like being, authoritative and like kind of leveraging certainty. So like on the opposite side of that, like, how do you get, like, you talked about calling somebody at whatever time in the morning, be like, all right, hey, we got a job to do. Let's go. And they're like, yes, sir. And like, not reluctantly, but it's just like, all right, I trust Derek. Like, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. Let's do it. So how do we get to that place in leadership that you get that buy-in and things really begin, not in a toxic way, but the opposite of, like, people really, you have a high functioning, trusted group of people that you're working with and for?
That's a great question. Inclusion.
Got it.
I've got an idea. I got a proposal. We're going to do something, guys. And I want to talk to you about it. I'm going to bring you guys into the room. And one of the first things that I'm going to say to you is, Will, you've probably got a pretty good vision on how we're doing X right now and what the next 6, 12, 18 months is going to look like based on our current trajectory. Would you be against walking me through that? Because, Will, you're not stupid, right? You've looked at this operation. You know what's going on. You know what works, what doesn't work, what could be improved, what could be jettisoned. You know all of that stuff. So I'm going to pull it out of you. And here's the thing. It's more about the overture than it is the information.
Yeah. I feel it right away. So you said that and be like, oh, I'm important.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
Right.
Now, what you actually give me, immaterial. It's not like I'm ignoring you. I'm going to listen because, again, you may come up with something that I didn't consider. Never be so sure about what you want that you wouldn't take something better if it came along. So even though I've got my mind made up on where I want to go, I'm still curious as to what's on your mind. And number two, I'm the boss asking you for input.
Mhm.
How freaking cool is that? And I'm doing
Yeah,
it in a
yeah.
group setting. I'm not
Right,
doing it
right.
one-on-one where you have to go
Right.
back and tell other people that it happened. They go, no, it didn't. I'm
Yeah,
doing it in a group setting, right?
exactly. More buy-in, more
And
inclusion.
so you're telling me and telling me and telling me, and I'm going to listen and listen and listen. And I'm telling you now, if you give me a good idea, I'm going to steal it. But the real, yeah, that's what I'm going to.
Like all great leaders do. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Okay.
But here's the more important thing. The overture is
Mhm.
altruistic in nature. I'm showing you that this conversation isn't about me. It's not about Derek coming and talking to Jon and Will trying to impose his will.
Mhm.
And so what I've done is increased the likelihood that when I finally tell you guys what the change is going to be, it's going to be far less pushback. Why? Because I let you go first. And if you're paying attention, boys and girls, you'll see that the sequencing that I just laid out for Will and Jon here is the same sequencing that we would use in a hostage take.
Mhm.
We're letting the other side express, ventilate, dump their bucket, provide input, however you want to put it, first,
Mhm.
before we jump to our explanation and then ultimately our demand or ask.
Yeah. Well, I think as I was absorbing your work, and one thing that Jon and I teach with Focus Now training, we go into companies and help them just learn to focus, right? And one thing, but also that helps them to focus a little bit more, but also create a greater team orientation, is getting them out of a transactional mindset
Yep.
and getting them into like, not about me, it's about we.
Yep.
Right. And getting into like, so it's like what you're really speaking about in so much of this, whether it's tactical empathy, what we just talked about, buy-in and inclusion, is really seeing the human being
Yep.
that's in front of you. And also, but you have to study a little bit too. And you have, is like, what are the basic needs or the hierarchy of needs of human beings? And to like use that information in order to, again, get that buy-in, understand how to speak to them properly. So like, again, you're in this we mindset, like we're doing this together instead of like, just listen to me and shut the F up and everything could be fine.
And so here's
So,
the other thing is the hierarchy of needs. Where does safety fall on that?
it's the very top.
No, it's second
No.
from the top, right?
Not sure.
It's at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it at the top? Thought it was like
It's at it's second from. Well, we can look it up later. Anyway, it's important. It's what I'm getting at. So we talked a little bit earlier about what this idea of tactical empathy is. Understanding this is, and I mentioned it before, bears repeating. This is all about removing you as a threat to the other person in the conversation, because as long as they view you as a threat, meaningful dialogue is not going to take place. I'll repeat it again. As long as you're being viewed as a threat by the other side, I don't care what the other side looks like, meaningful dialogue is not going to take place. Even if you are engaging a superior, you are a threat to that superior. You have to go into that conversation saying, what can I do concretely to remove myself or remove that prism of offensiveness from the way they're looking at this conversation? That should be your number one thought, is how can I remove myself as a threat? Because
Exactly.
defensive emotions are high, rational thinking is low. You can't affect rational thinking until you affect the negative emotions as they see it. So you got to bring these down to bring this up.
Yeah. Yeah. We have the 5 needs here. It's like the first one is a physiological: food, water, shelter, sleep, breath. The second is safety and security. We go to love and belonging. Fourth is esteem, and fifth is self-actualization.
And
So,
interesting enough that those top 2 levels are all about identity. And that is the biggest crux. When people push back against you, when people tell you no, when you get an objection, you pick up hesitation, reluctance, resistance from the other side. That objection, that reluctance, that pushback is always, not sometimes, not frequently, always coming from an emotional spot. Always. And so instead of freaking out at the fact that they're pushing back against you, you should ask yourself, I wonder where that's coming from.
Yeah, that's the curiosity right there. I heard that in a podcast you're talking about, and I was like, that was one of the best questions in any conversation that you can possibly ask not to them, to yourself. Where is that coming from? It puts a pause. It creates curiosity. It does not allow you to attach to emotion, right? Because that's like they can't exist at the same time. Curiosity and fear cannot exist at the same time.
Yep.
Right. So it puts you in like, and also objectifies. It helps you to pull out instead of attaching and attacking, if you will. Right?
And it prevents you from doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when you hear from someone, you guys have got to cut your price or we're going somewhere else.
Yeah, right.
That's not the time to start cutting your price. What they're telling you is something completely different. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but that's up to you. It's incumbent upon you to find out. They may have been burned in the past by somebody that looks just like you. They may be up for a promotion, and if they don't bring this in under budget, there's nowhere they're going to be considered. They may get fired if something bad happens in this interaction. They're thinking to themselves, there's no way that I can take this back to my side. I'm going to be judged for my performance here. So any one of those things is really what cut your price or I'm going to a competitor says. And so instead of freaking out, going, what are we going to do? Get curious and figure out where it's coming from. Because again, from their perspective, they've been clear on what the issues are and you haven't picked it up.
Yeah. But also when you are in that curious place, again, you're activating humanity. It's taking it out of the transactional, like we talked about, and you're seeing the person, that's the unspoken technical empathy, if you will. You're really connecting with that. I'd imagine that's essential.
That is critical. When you guys start to identify for another person and articulate stuff from another person that they can't articulate for themselves, there's no clearer way to show them that you're dialed in. When they say cut your price or I'm going to a competitor and you say, sounds like you've been burned in the past. And they say, no, I haven't been burned in the past. It's actually bop, 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 bop. Okay, now I know. I've gone from wondering whether it was because they were burned in the past to now knowing it wasn't that. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So by showing tactical empathy, I made myself smarter because you're never worse off going from wondering whether or not something is the case to knowing. And so
that's great.
Just I call it getting off of the surface. In every sensitive conversation, there's going to be a presenting dynamic or emotion, and then there's going to be a latent dynamic or emotion. The presenting are the actual words. But with the actual words, there's always something underneath. Martin, can't remember the full name. Anyway, he was a North Carolina tobacco farmer. He hitches his John Deere to a trailer, puts the trailer on a truck. He drives it to Washington, D.C., offloads the trailer, drives it into the reflecting pool and says, I've got explosives, going to blow up the mall. 3 days, MPD, FBI, U.S. Park, negotiate with this guy. They get to the point on day 3 where he's going to come out. And one of the things he tells the negotiator, I'm ready, but you're not handcuffing me. Now, the words he used, you're not handcuffing me, that's the presenting dynamic. The latent dynamic is, why did he want to get handcuffed? Respect, self-esteem, doesn't want to be viewed as a criminal. He referred to himself over and over during 3 days that he was a patriot. And so it was all 4 of those are identity issues. And the negotiator went for those identity issues and worked it out. So whenever you get that first objection, that pushback, don't take it at face value. Always say to yourself, there's something else there.
Wow. That's great. Thank you.
I can't stop thinking now that he's the reason the algae's in the reflecting pool. But
I was thinking I'd just ask the guy to handcuff himself. Be a really good negotiator. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, John.
Anyway,
Sorry.
well, yeah, you touched on right then the how we're saying things, and you've said this multiple times through the conversation. How we say things are more important than the actual words that are saying. And I said in the very beginning that you've said you teach that the tone is 13 times more important than the actual words. One, I want to understand how you measure that. That's just a curiosity piece of me. But two is, help us understand that what happens in the brain and the body of the person you're talking to when they hear the wrong tone, even if the words are the right words. What happens
All right.
there?
So you're talking about a disconnect. If there's a disconnect between words and tone, the bottom line is, here's what you need to remember. People will default to what they feel you meant by the tone versus the actual words. The numbers have been kicked around a lot, 5 times, 13 times. There are numbers that are all over the place. It was basically built upon a paper that was written by Dr. Albert Morabian back in the 70s. And he wrote the ratio 7:38:55 when it comes to content, delivery, and syntax of a message. What percentage would you put on each as to the importance? And content, he said, was 7% of the conversation. Delivery was 38% of the conversation, and syntax was 55% of the conversation. And syntax and delivery are so similar that you could almost combine those. Okay. So how you say it is worth 93% of that conversation versus what you actually say. So what does that mean in conversation? I can dial you up and I can dial you back just based on my tone of voice. I can make you dumber. I can make you smarter in the moment just based on my tone of voice. If I come at you in an aggressive manner in my tone and I'm trying to impose my will, I'm trying to make you as uncomfortable as possible, I'm impeding your ability to think. I'm making you uncomfortable. You are now in survival mode. Your instinct is going to be to fight me, to run from me, or just to freeze up in the moment. And so that's the power that you have. And I've done an exercise. I've probably done it 1,000 times at this point. And in that exercise, based on my tone of voice, you can watch the person with whom I'm interacting. You can watch them get dumber in the moment. And then as soon as I switch to a more pleasant, playful tone, you can see on their face they're relieved, and all of a sudden their performance gets better. Why? Because they're no longer being constricted by my tone of voice. My tone of voice has that amygdala fire up, has that hippocampus fire up, and shuts down what's supposed to be going on in the prefrontal cortex. You are actually making your counterpart dumber if you are in an aggressive state or have an aggressive tone of voice. And I hear it all the time from people. My coaching clients, I got a conversation with this guy coming up next week, and he's always imposing his will and slamming his fist on the table and yelling and screaming, blah, blah, blah. Is it okay for me to do that back to him? And my answer is always the same. Yes. If your goal is to make him dumber.
Yeah.
Because you will. And there's Sean Aker, I think.
The happiness advantage.
31% better in a positive state, man. Those 31% in your brain is 31% more effective in a positive state, which is great for negotiators. It's great for leaders because that means I've got some control over their state. People always talk about, I want to control the conversation. No. Control your state, control their state. The conversation will take care of itself.
Yeah, it's also not like when you're controlling is not a conversation, like converse, like with versing together, right? It's like it's just like talk about being stupid or talk about a dumb way of thinking. Like it's like you can't control a conversation. Or you can try, but you get nowhere. You absolutely go nowhere.
No.
I mean, you're in that. Like I'm sure Marshall Rosenberg's work. The NVC. He talks about you got to get out of the game of who's right. You just got to get out of that game because nobody wins in that game all the time is what he says. Yeah.
Without question. Why? Because your perspective is always going to be different than mine.
Right.
This is why I'd say this is the whole idea of crossing the street, standing shoulder to shoulder. We are not looking at and seeing and processing the same stuff. We're just not.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a difference. And so the big challenge is, how do I make you feel heard and understood? And that is by letting you go first.
Yeah. Yeah. And he talks about, if you ever seen his videos, he uses stuffed animals to kind of talk and communicate. And he uses a giraffe as the person that is actually the nonviolent communicator, because the giraffe has two hearts. You know, one listens with their ears, right? And the other one listens with their heart.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I mean, his work
I
is
never knew that.
Yeah, they have two. So that's the way he kind of breaks down, you know, how to effectively communicate with people. You know, and it's like,
Well, if I learned nothing else today, Derek, I've learned that a giraffe has two
two
hearts.
hearts, right? Yeah. Well, and Marshall Rosenberg.
I'm sure. And Marshall Rosenberg. Well, then that means I was effective, because you remember nothing.
Yeah, right.
Thank you very much.
I've definitely
welcome.
learned more
You're
than
welcome.
that.
Derek's being inclusive. Well, you know, I think like, so let's, you know, you have a particular tone that you talk about, accommodator tone, you know, and you define that as being friendly, approachable, and steady. Okay. So like, why does that work? And then what do we need to do to practice to be and live and experience more of that accommodating tone in all our interactions? Yeah.
Just my interaction with you all, I mean, you have more of an accommodating tone than Jon does. John's going to have to work at it harder from his perspective.
Oh, wow.
Because he's got the mug for it. You know what I mean? And when I say he's got the mug for it, the mean mug. I've only seen his teeth twice since we've been talking. I've seen yours multiple times. And so
I'm a happy fucking guy.
And so I mean? The question
doesn't have kids yet. Hey, Derek, Will does not have kids yet.
He's always blaming this shit on his kids. I gotta say, he's always
my poor kids, man. They're gonna come back one day and listen to my show and be like, "Dad, you're such an asshole.
Dad, you're not accommodating, Dad.
Did we do anything right? Anything?"
Oh, that's great.
But the accommodator's voice is a practiced voice. If you're not an accommodator, but the bottom line is, how often have I used the word threat in this conversation? The bottom line is,
a couple times.
You've got to you just be that person that people find enjoyable to talk to. That's all. I'm not telling you that you got to be giggly and smiling, and it just has to be a pleasant experience to engage with you. Patrol officer, cop voice, in and of itself is not very accommodating. It's just not. It's do this. You know, it's
knife hands.
It's very direct. And you're not going to get a lot of cooperation with that very direct tone of voice. You've got to say to the other side, no harm is going to come to you by talking to me, and it's got to come through your voice now.
And through your body, I'd imagine, the way like your physical position, you know, if you're like closed off, or, you know what I mean? Like you're fucking beat red, you know, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I imagine like, it's not, the words are important, but like we talked also here, like one of the qualities of accommodating tone is friendly, approachable, right? So I imagine your body has to be able to open, also steady in the sense of like you're rock solid.
But here's the thing is it's the idea of I don't want to say it again. It's the idea, keep that top of mind, removing yourself as a threat. Is my tone threatening to them, not to you? Because if I talk to Jon, Jon's gonna say, no, I'm not threatening in my tone of voice. But I'm telling you right now that Jon's gonna come across like that.
I actually know. I do know that I can't be.
But I'm the same way, Jon, and I'm not casting aspersions.
I usually get picked on, Derek. Thank you. Thanks for picking on Jon, because I usually get picked on. Yeah, I'm gonna hear about this later. It's like, that son of a bitch fucking picking on me on my own show. I'm just kidding, Derek. I'm just kidding, Derek.
No, you're not.
It's not going. I'm just kidding.
I love it.
But the other voice, the analyst voice, the late night FM DJ voice is downward inflecting. It's slow. This is where I am trying to convey to the other side that, from my perspective, there is no more movement. I've been pushed as far as I'm willing to go. What would you like the next move to be? And so I say it like that to convey to the other side that I'm not playing around anymore. This is serious business. So when I get to my ask, when I get to my goal and objective, when I get to the part where I want their brain to slow down and listen to every syllable that comes out of my mouth.
I'm getting scared now.
Now, I don't know if you guys picked it up when you go back and watch it again.
Yeah.
The demeanor and the facial expressions on both of you changed immediately when I went into that voice. You were, it was almost hypnotic. You were drawn in, and it was almost like, where is he going with this story?
Yeah.
What is he going to say next? You were focused.
Yeah.
And so the first portion of my conversation with anyone is going to be in the accommodator's voice. When I get to the part where I'm going to explain, when I get to the part where I'm going to deny, when I get to the part where I'm going to ask, or when I get to the part where I'm going to kick them out of the room, it's going to be in that late night FM DJ type of voice. The analyst.
Right. And that's part of the accommodating tone, or it's just
No,
like
no,
it's
a separate
opposite.
separate. Okay,
Separate
got it. Okay, got it. Yeah, right. So really being
All
heard.
right.
So,
Well, maybe I have closer to that tone, Derek. I don't know.
You do.
John's going to be calling you for coaching, Derek. I know it.
I'm a late night DJ. Well, I've got one more question for you, but it's actually kind of driven back by going back to the ego and the failure and the authority piece, or ego, authority, and failure. One of the worst pieces of advice I ever got from an instructor was, do not ever tell your men sorry. And I remember it clearly, like it happened yesterday. It was something stupid too. It was on the obstacle course at training. And I'm a taller guy, and there's one particular obstacle where it was beneficial to be taller because you had longer arms and you could grab the parts of the obstacle. And I recommended to the shorter guy, not thinking, hey man, just move your body like this. And he did it, and he fell off the obstacle and came up to me afterwards. And he's like, hey, boss, that tip you gave me didn't work. I was like, oh man, I'm really sorry. And the instructor heard me say that, and he's like, hey sir, get over here. And I go over there, and he's like,
accommodating voice. Yeah, totally.
yeah, super accommodating. He's like, what the hell did you just do? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, you just apologized to one of your men. Do not ever apologize to your men. That undermines your authority.
What was that, 1943? When did you have this?
Yeah, John is old as fuck, man. He really is.
I mean, my
John is
God.
very old.
You standing on the cliff at Normandy when this happened?
Yeah, man. I was like, what? Like, I told him, I was like, hey, I actually believe the opposite. I believe that it builds trust to be able to admit when you're wrong, when you've done something wrong.
No. All right. Seriously, John. What year was this?
Yeah.
What year?
This was 2001. It was after 9/11. Actually, 2002. 2002.
Okay. All right. Very well. Continue, and then I'll give you my opinion.
Yeah. So I think it builds trust. Admitting when you've screwed up.
Absolutely.
And I want to know from you why you feel that apologizing is so important and powerful, and then how do you sit in that space? Why is sitting in that space so important as well?
The apology is so effective because nobody does it. Nobody does it for the reason that you got chewed out for doing it. Is because they think it's going to make them feel weak, and it's going to undermine their authority. And for the life, and I was asking you how long ago it was, because that way of thinking is so antiquated.
It was antiquated back then.
We're on I was from a paramilitary organization. You're from a military organization. Collectively, our organizations have written and forgotten clearly more about leadership than any other space on the planet.
Right.
And yet we produce some of the worst leaders.
Indeed.
And so for the life of me, I do not understand the statement that apologizing undermines your influence. It makes you a human being. It shows your direct reports that I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect. And yet I'm occupying this seat. You can occupy this seat as well. Don't worry about your mistakes. Your mistakes are the things that are the best teachers on the planet. Every time that you fail, And so when I screw up, that is a leadership technique as a leader to go to your people and say, I blew it.
You're fucked up.
We should have gone left, and I kept pushing us to go right. And now we know that was not the right move. Your people are going to be like, holy crap, finally. Somebody who didn't blame it on us, which is the other aspect that happens, right? When something blows up, they don't apologize. They say, my guys just didn't execute properly, which is, I just want to kick them down the flight of stairs when I hear stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
you want to talk about undermining authority? That'll do it.
Yeah. And
That'll do it.
I when I'm training civilians in the corporate world about how to apply our stuff to their world, and I hear hypotheticals all the time. Well, I did this, I did that, and I really screwed it up, and they're angry with me. And I got to get back in touch with them. What's the first thing I should do? And I'm like, are you serious? You tell them you're sorry. It's not.
Yeah.
That's what hurts me the most, is that leadership is not rocket science. It's common sense, man. And I watched Simon Sinek one day on a on the YouTube channel interview, and he said, I talk about leadership, I talk about empathy in leadership, and I talk about the importance of putting your people first. He goes, in this day and age, there shouldn't, with all of the resources that are out there, there shouldn't be any need for my business. And yet there is.
Probably more than ever, too.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's I don't get it either. I don't know. I mean, it could be, is it, just, you're throwing darts here at the problem. Like, I mean, we come from an old paradigm of leadership. Like, this is kind of like we talked about, like, your 1940s. Well, there's some people from the 1940s that are still around. A lot of them are fathers that we've kind of learned, like, this is the way kind of you are a leader. And it's like, I'm so happy that we're coming in with the work you're doing, the work that Jon and I are doing. Like, we're creating different leaders and helping them understand, that's really important to be a human being as a leader. And you actually get better results by being a human being, instead of just trying to act like you don't have any flaws, or you're always perfect, or always making the right call, or, like, blaming everyone else for the mistakes that are happening within your organization. It's just like, it is changing. It is changing. And I hope this conversation people are listening to, they start to have those changes too. And that's why we have you on, Derek. I mean, your work, it just speaks for itself. And you obviously hear all the authority that you have, right? Just by all the things you've taught and all the experience that you had, for being a cop and being a hostage negotiator. And it's like, this is what the conversations that it takes for people, to wake up to this. But also it's like, but how do we practice this? And I think that's where we kind of fall short. We hear this conversation, and you don't try enough to apologize. You don't know what it takes to apologize, or you don't know what it's like to have that accommodating tone, because you're fucking an asshole. You're unapproachable, and you're always erratic. Instead of being, so I'm just spitballing here, but yeah, it is changing. Because these conversations are being had more and more often, and it just takes a lot of practice. I think that's one thing. Like, how do we practice these things, Derek? Like, what would you do? As somebody that has worked with so many different organizations, like, where's a great place to start in order to, understand, tackle empathy, to acquire that accommodating tone, and some of the other key things that we talked about here? Or maybe just batter up the one fucking apology and just see how that works.
Yeah. All right. To your point, I can pontificate about this stuff all I want.
But
the
you're
fact of
fantastic.
the matter is, if you don't go out and try to apply and execute in low stakes practice, it's not going to work out for you. So one of in conversations that mean nothing to you, you can go out today, your Starbucks, your grocery store, dry cleaner, whatever. We'll walk up to the person and behind the counter and ask them how they're doing. And when they respond, you label what you heard. And the label is one of our techniques, where it's our articulation of a verbal observation from data that they're giving us. Okay. And so walk up to that Starbucks person and say, how are you today? And regardless of what they say, you label what you hear. In fact, Label what you're not hearing. Remember what I said? There's a presenting dynamic and a latent dynamic. Label that latent dynamic. What are you not hearing? So you walk into the Starbucks and you ask the person, hey, how's it going today? And they're like, it's been one. And you simply say to them, wow, it sounds like you've been getting kicked in the nuts all day today. And watch how much more information they just vomit up on you about how their day is gone. Because you took a rather innocuous statement, you got off of the surface, and you went hyperbolic on your label. You sounds like you've been getting kicked in the nuts all day today. That person is going, finally, somebody gets it. There have been 99 other people that have walked into this Starbucks today and asked me how I'm doing. This is the only person who's shown an interest that they care. And what are they going to do? Reciprocity. I'm going to reward that person for caring with a whole bunch more information. That's one way to practice. Get in that low stakes practice to demonstrate your concern and interest about somebody else's life. Great way to start.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, it's like you mentioned earlier about how apologizing is unique. Actually asking somebody how they're doing and listening and then responding, with their unique like situation or whatever the secondary kind of feeling that you're getting from them. It's like these should be skills that we all do all the time.
Without question.
I mean, because it's like, because what we're talking, I mean, as we're going through this inventory of like how to just really be in a good conversation with people, really lead with like empathy, it just makes life so much easier, is what I've experienced all the time. Just really listening and holding space and just being there for people, and seeing them as people and realize like they might just be having a bad day instead of like, someone attacking you or saying something negative to you. It has nothing to do with you typically, absolutely nothing.
No.
So
and once you pick up on that and you give it back to them, because that's what our stuff is basically. We're at the plate with a bat, and we can just swing at whatever pitch we want. We never have to play the field. We're just waiting on data from the other side. And so once you see a pitch you like, you swing at it. They're going to love it because they're, like I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, they're not getting it at work and they're not getting it at home. And here comes you, somebody who's generally showing an interest in what's going on with them. That's what loosens the lid on the jar. There are people that look at our stuff and says, I can't do it. It's going to take me too long. That is a time wasting process. I'm successful with what I do now. Yeah, you are, but you're not as successful as you otherwise could be. And you're successful in the short term transactionally. That's not a long game.
No, exactly.
And it's not sustainable. It's going to cost you at some point.
Yeah, that thank you for saying that last part, because like, you might be, this kind of ego-full leader, but you're creating all sorts of toxicity and chaos within, your work environment. You're probably taking that home with you, and you will pay the price, whether that is like because of all the anxiety that you're continually riding on, just creating all sorts of who knows what's going on the inside, but just to like, just to be, again, I love those qualities that accommodator is like friendly, approachable, and steady. It's really, it's powerful. It's very powerful for you to do that for other people and for yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. It's the best thing that I've come across. There's, and I'll stop talking after this, but
no,
you just sparked another thought. I talked about the unquenchable thirst. I talked about people having that desire to be heard, and respected, and how much our skills allow for that. There was a lady that we had a live event, and I think it was in San Diego. We had a live event. We met her at the live event, and then she jumped on an online call that we had, and she asked me and another instructor if we could stay after the call, and we did. And she got very emotional about she was trying to get her citizenship squared away. And she was having difficulty with customs. And she was progressing along fine for an extended period of time. And all of a sudden, boom, she just got stonewalled. And she's worried about the fact that she's going to have to leave the country and blah, blah, blah. And so we walked her through what our ideas were as far as re-engaging this CBP employee. And we gave her the Black Swan techniques that she should use. Anyway, To make a long story longer, she goes away and she does her thing. We have another, this is probably 9 months, 10 months later, we had another live event, this time in LA, and she was in Honolulu. She flew from Honolulu to LA. She's already been through our course. This is a replication of the course she's already been through. So she pays for another seat in this course.
Wow.
But she comes to the course, walks into the room, walks up to me and holds up her card, and she's bawling her eyes out. And I'm like, if this is not an indication of the impact that the skills can have on people's lives, not only the people with whom you're using it with, but on you, I'm all in that. Because she's that image of her crying in front of me, holding up her card, was worth it.
Yeah.
Every penny.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. All the work you've done, everything to get to that
Congratulations
point.
on that.
Yeah. Wow. This has been great, Derek. Like, this is very, very powerful conversation, very empowering for all the people that are going to listen. And, I'd really invite anyone that is listening to share this, listen again. Like, this is stuff that is not taught enough. But where are you? Like, that you got a great book. Tell us about your book. Tell us about any lectures you have coming up. If it's in the city, I'll definitely come. Spend a few days with you guys. Would be huge.
Yeah. I think our next hit is probably going to be Orlando.
Okay.
We got the Dealmaker Day, September 18th in Vegas. And then I think we got one coming up in Orlando as well. But you guys have already talked about Ego, Authority, Failure. The new one that came out, Fight Less, Win More. I co-wrote that with a close friend of the Black Swan Group. And so you can definitely find that on Amazon, jump into that. What that does for the for the Never Split the Difference fans is it breaks it down a little bit more. It makes it a little bit more usable. There are actual activities within this book, and
nice.
some takeaway and thought and teach back questions in there that Never Split the Difference did not have. And the feedback that we're getting on Fight Less, Win More is that it's a great companion manual to Never Split the Difference. So I'd encourage everybody to go out and get that as well.
Nice. Excellent. Nice. And that's all at Black Swan, or where's the website, or where can we find all that?
BlackSwanLTD.com.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Derek.
Appreciate it. Love talking
I got to work on my accommodator tone. And,
definitely. Show those teeth, John.
I'm going to go and work on that in the mirror right after this. And you've given me tools to work with my kids too, and I think that's the most important
huge.
thing.
That's a big one too.
So thank you so much for that, and
of course.
for being here today, and for what you do for everyone else out there.
Yeah.
For our listeners, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the episode, give us a review. Share the episode, and join our community. Everything that we've got going on is, you can find it at mentalkingmindfulness.com/link in bio, or just text MTN to 33777, and we hope to hear from you soon. All right, everyone. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Derek. Peace, everybody. Thank you.